This is the visual reality of Pyongyang, a city of total order. Here, the state dictates even the smallest details of a citizen's appearance. There are only 15 government-approved hairstyles for men and women, and clothing like blue jeans or sun hats is strictly banned as a threat of Western cultural influence. Digital life is monitored with the same intensity. Citizens are restricted to a domestic intranet, and state-issued smartphones are programmed to take random screenshots throughout the day. These images are sent to government servers to ensure no one is viewing unapproved media. This control is anchored by the Songbun caste system. Based on perceived political loyalty, your family's ranking determines your entire life, from where you are permitted to live to the quality of education and healthcare you receive. Compliance is enforced through guilt by association. When one person commits a political crime, the state punishes 3 generations of their family, often sending grandparents, parents, and children to forced labor camps for a single relative's mistake. This isn't merely about strictness, it is a psychological strategy. By making the cost of dissent so high for loved ones, the regime ensures that neighbors and family members live in a state of constant, mutual suspicion. Shin Dong Hyuk's life illustrates the result of this system. Born inside political prison Camp 14, he was considered impure from birth because of a crime committed by his uncle. He grew up in an environment where starvation was the only constant. By age 13, the state's conditioning had overridden his basic human instincts. When he overheard his mother and brother discussing an escape, Shin reported them to the guards, hoping the betrayal would earn him an extra ration of food. His reward was trauma. Shin was forced to stand at the front of the crowd and watch as his mother and brother were executed by the state he had tried to please. For decades, this machine of human suppression seemed total. But even in a system this terrifying, cracks have begun to appear. How did the regime's absolute grip on its people begin to slip? Before the 1990s, North Korea presented a different face to the world. Heavily subsidized by the Soviet Union, it provided free housing, education, and food to its citizens, maintaining a GDP that rivaled its neighbors. That stability ended with the collapse of the USSR. The loss of cheap oil and food aid, combined with massive floods, triggered a catastrophic famine between 1995 and 1998. It is estimated that up to 2 million people died of starvation. The state infrastructure effectively ceased to function. On satellite imagery, the country became a black void at night, while neighbors remained lit. The famine broke the fundamental agreement between the dictator and the people. The state demanded total obedience in exchange for survival, but when the people began to starve, the state provided nothing. Out of this desperation, a decentralized economy emerged. Citizens began trading food and goods in local black markets, known as Jangmadang, a grassroots survival mechanism that the government was unable to stop. This shift had a specific gender dynamic. Most men were still forced to show up for unpaid, state-assigned jobs where they were closely watched. Because married women had more freedom of movement, they became the primary traders in these markets. The economic results were stark. Data suggests that women eventually became responsible for over 70% of a household's income, providing resources the state could no longer supply. By failing its side of the bargain, the regime inadvertently shifted economy away from its own offices. The survival of the North Korean family no longer depended on the state, but on the initiative of its women. Once the immediate need for food stabilized, the Jangmadang became conduits for more than just physical supplies. They evolved into the country's main hubs for smuggled international goods. Traders began moving Chinese media players and USB sticks. These easily hidden devices were loaded with South Korean dramas and foreign films, allowing citizens to see the reality of the world beyond their borders. These markets moved from fulfilling a need for calories to fulfilling a demand for information. The same networks that fed the population were now providing them with a forbidden view of global wealth and freedom. This foreign media directly challenges the state's central narrative. When a citizen sees the wealth and casual freedoms depicted in South Korean media, the propaganda claiming the outside world is a disease-ridden wasteland loses its credibility. This creates a systemic glitch for the regime. The very officials and guards tasked with enforcing the rules are also struggling to survive in the failed state economy. Consequently, bribery has become a standard tool for survival. Citizens caught with illegal media or wearing unapproved clothes can often bypass the fashion police or avoid labor camps by paying off the guards, who prioritize cash over government ideology. The regime's rules remain rigid on paper, but their enforcement is now negotiable. The dictatorship's authority is being eroded from within by the same poverty that its own policies created. Act 1 showed how the state uses fear to ensure neighbors spy on one another, destroying the possibility of trust. But the illegal economy requires the opposite. Participating in the Jangmadang, or sharing a smuggled USB drive, requires a high level of mutual risk. To watch a forbidden movie, you must trust that your neighbor won't report you to the secret police. These small, illegal acts are rebuilding the social bonds that the regime spent decades trying to dismantle. Sharing information creates a network of reliance that exists entirely outside of the state's control. The attempt to isolate and starve its citizens inadvertently forced them to create a parallel market and an underground system of trust. The regime is now facing a population that is increasingly less dependent on its propaganda, proving that even absolute control has its limits when faced with human resilience.